Well, it has been quite a week in the new Trump presidency. More Twitter outbursts as the FBI confirmed it's investigating how Russia may have had links to the Trump campaign and helped subvert the U.S. election. Just before Americans voted, W5 traveled to a state that it turns out helped Trump win. So with all that's gone on since, we decided to retrace our steps in Pennsylvania, beginning at Philadelphia's Independence Hall, typically a historic tourist destination, but since Trump's victory, much more than that.
I commit as an individual to promote peace in my community.
Now, it's an almost every other day thing. In the shadow of the Clock Tower Hall, where wise men wrestled with America's founding principles, there are regular protests these days.
We stand up against bigotry and hatred in whatever form it may take.
A Muslim imam reads the beginning of the Declaration of Independence that was written here in 1776.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary, and it is now necessary for all of us together to come together and to stand as a people.
Taking comfort in words from the past, it's what progressive Americans cling to now.
We have a lot of differences we need to work out.
Jews have played a vital role.
Still a pretty divided country, huh?
In the development of the country we share.
What do you see happening to America right now?
I see a lot of division. I see a lot of things we need to work out. Part of the issue that I think is the big problem, good or bad, is racism, hate is now all on the surface.
When you look at where your country is right now, what concerns do you have?
I mean, the significant polarization that's been occurring and, well, has been occurring for a long time is very concerning, and that unfortunately has segued into some degree of hate and anger.
I was here 2 months ago before the election. This was a place filled with tourists. Now it seems to be a center of protest. What does that tell you about the state of America right now?
I worry that we're fighting an immovable object. I mean, I worry that there's just this demagoguery there isn't an amount of protest that will make a difference.
This is what democracy looks like.
There have been unprecedented protests against an incoming president. 50,000 in Philly, millions across America the week Trump took the oath of office. Because for the half of America who did not vote for Trump, protest is all they have. Without a leader to rally around, there is a power vacuum for progressives. So they're disrupting Republican town halls and occupying a senator's office in Philadelphia, demanding one. When you feel you have no access to power, what else is there to do?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty quick to dismiss these kind of protests as not legitimate.
Right. So I guess that's why it's important to be here and be like, nope, I was here. It's legitimate.
But divisive outbursts have dominated talk of unity by the president.
I am here to change the broken system. I inherited a mess. It's a mess. This isn't Donald Trump that divided a nation.
When W5 was last in this swing state a month before the vote, we attended a Trump event as they watched a pivotal presidential debate and displayed the anger that was rising against elites. We dropped in on small towns like Tyrone that had suffered job losses with trade deals, the State College with apathetic youth, and talk radio, where one caller told us America would unite once the election was over.
How do you put Humpty Dumpty back together again after this election?
You communicate with all people, and that's what he's been doing. We'll put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and things will be good.
So we found that radio show caller and invited her to meet in a coffee shop near the demonstrators. Turns out Renee Moore is a top Republican organizer in the state.
Humpty Dumpty's still kind of wobbly. Can it really be put back together again in America?
Absolutely. It's a start. It started with the speech to Congress. It started, you had some Democrats even standing up, applauding, those type of things. We have to get with leadership. All right, and once people see that happening, that makes a difference. But then you have to make sure that filters down to people, your staff, to people in the community, people across the country, so that people really understand what's going on.
But even a loyalist like Renee will admit Trump hasn't always been the healer, particularly in the angry tweets the president issues at odd times of the day, attacking the former president, the FBI, Democrats, and particularly the mainstream press.
Has he contributed to some of the continuation of the division,
Absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt, because he says what he wants to say, how he wants to say it. Most presidents or really never did that I know of. You know, they would tell their confidants or something like that, but he just tweeted it out, and then it caused a lot of problems.
And what kind of problems did it cause for you as somebody who's on the ground here in Philadelphia trying to attract particularly more African Americans into the party?
And plus, being the deputy chair of the Republican Party in Pennsylvania, so it wasn't just in Philadelphia, it was the whole state. And I would get calls, emails, texts like, Renee, what the heck is going on? And they didn't say it that nice, you know, and what are you going to do about it? I'm saying, I'm not the president. I can't do anything.
And so with some Republicans starting to voice frustration, we decided to return to the radio station where the conservative stars of talk radio decorate the hallways, and where host Chris Steigel agreed to again let us ask his listeners about Trump and the progressive protests which have erupted against him. How do you view the protests which have kind of erupted in the last few weeks?
They're not organic. They're contrived. They're paid. They're anarchists, and I think it's very artificial.
Kate in Valley Forge this morning.
Good morning. And Kevin, how are you?
I'm very well, Kate.
Listen, I have an easy tip for you. If you want to learn about the 0.001% or 2% of America, you're saying where they feel, go watch the news.
Where is America now?
Well, I think America has been quiet, but America voted on November 8th. I think it's pretty basic. He's talking about jobs, about America first, which isn't so terrible.
How do you view the protests which have kind of erupted in the last few weeks?
I'm a conservative, and one of the things that just inflames me is that if you're conservative, you're not allowed to speak.
So is deepening division all that's going on here? Well, let's leave the city and head to the center of the state, back to Tyrone, Pennsylvania, and talk to some of the blue-collar workers there and see how they feel now about Trump's pledge to bring good quality manufacturing jobs back to places like it. You know, voters there tend to think a little bit of chaos and disruption in Washington isn't such a bad thing. If people in the cities take Trump's tweets seriously, but not always the man, in Tyrone, they take the man seriously, but not his tweets. The town sits in a valley of the Allegheny Mountains. The tallest thing in it is the smokestack from a paper mill that once supplied a lot of its jobs. We reconnected with the current owner of that mill, Mike Grimm, a Trump supporter who felt globalized trade deals ripped the heart out of towns like Tyrone. He's proven, under the right conditions, blue-collar jobs can return by bringing the mill out of mothballs. So in total, how many employees are you on hand right now?
We have about 240 right now.
Did you think he would win?
Did I think he would win? To be honest with you, no. In the end of the day, it was like watching the Super Bowl that night. We were pretty excited about it.
Grimm thinks Trump is approaching government the way any new CEO might. Meet with people to identify the issues and then set a new direction for others to follow.
You have a CEO, typical minded, get it done kind of individual that is basically running the show like what we would see in the corporate world. This is what we have to get done. This is the time frame, and he sets the agenda and the expectations. The issues with that are that it's a massive culture change.
So the things that he's doing, some of the sledgehammer approach, you're telling me that that's sort of typical of what a CEO might have to do if he had to perform a lot of culture change in an organization that hasn't had it?
This may be the greatest turnaround role of all times. Sometimes the changes are rapid, sometimes they're not fully understood, and sometimes, and many times, they create a lot of anxiety. I think in the political world, we like to sit and talk about things and overcook them 500 ways to one before we make a decision. That's not what you get with Donald Trump. I think he's an executive. He thinks like an executive. But, hey, we're only a month into it. It's very difficult to really form an opinion.
But down the road from the paper mill, at the weekly bowling tournament, it doesn't seem too early to form opinions. Everyone we talked to here voted for Trump, largely because of his promise to bring jobs back to places like Tyrone. And it's here you begin to hear a warning for the new president. There isn't a lot of patience, even among his base supporters, for him to deliver. From guys like Todd Lernick.
Do you think he's having trouble adjusting to his role as president?
I think he's very cocky with it, yes. Very cocky.
Do you think he's upsetting people a little bit too much to be able to get stuff done?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like I said about building the wall and stuff, what's it going to really occur? They're going to still get across. I mean, that's spending a lot of taxpayers' money for really nothing.
Are you at the point where you regret your vote yet?
Absolutely.
You regret your vote now?
Absolutely. But really, they all pretty much lie.
There are other Trump voters with reservations. Peggy Snyder.
So who did you vote for in the last election?
I voted for Trump.
And how do you think he's doing so far?
I think he's just too opinionated. I think he needs to think a lot before he decides to talk.
They're watching and waiting. Retired maintenance worker Cliff Heidel.
Do you think he's creating too many waves in these early days, or?
Oh, of course. With all the protesters and stuff going on, most definitely. You can't judge a presidency by a couple months. You give him like 2 years, and then you should be able to judge how he's doing.
And then there are small business owners like Chip Herman.
But I think it's kind of nice to have somebody that's not a career politician and give them a chance to see what they can do. I mean, we'll find out pretty quick what's going to happen.
So his support next time around isn't guaranteed for you. You're going to watch.
No, it's not guaranteed. I don't vote just on party lines. I try to vote for what's good for our country, what's good for our people, what's good for other people.
We are going to drain the swamp of government corruption in Washington, D.C.
So true to its history, a swing state like Pennsylvania may yet prove capable of striking down the president it helped bring to power by swinging somewhere else next time.
We are going to massively reduce your taxes.
Which brought us, for some perspective, back to the campus of Penn State and students in a political science class.
So we're only maybe, a few weeks into this presidency, but what do you think about how he's responding, particularly, I think, to rural Americans?
People, they're down on their luck, they're depressed. They see somebody coming in and saying, hey, we're going to give you a job, we're going to give you coal mining, steel, all the stuff that you used to have, a good lifestyle. And they say, hey, let's go for it. All these actual politicians, they don't care about us per se.
And nobody's actually, lots of people have said they've actually cared about them before, but for some reason, at least in rural America, they believe that.
He doesn't seem like a politician. He's not some elitist. I eat McDonald's and I eat chicken.
Let me ask you, what do you think is the nature of the presidency that he's so far delivering?
He definitely is not looking about making people happy. And he's always been pretty set on the idea that the idea isn't that we got to make everybody happy, it's that we got to do what we need to do.
Let me ask you, how long do you think Americans are willing to wait before seeing the kind of results that he's promised?
1 year from now. I think 2 years. You got to wait, give him at least half his term.
Halfway through, he's
And what
already
about
winning
yourself?
re-election.
How soon before you know whether this has worked?
I don't think you really quite know what's worked or what hasn't worked until they're kind of gone. So right now, at this very moment, say it's the worst presidency in the history of forever, I think is unfair to him. He just got there.
Yet already, in a state where voters are famous for changing their minds, there are signs of restlessness. They believed change was necessary, liked what they heard from Trump, and gave him a chance. They are now starting to listen and judge more critically, impatient for the promises to turn to action.
We're keeping our promises, and we have just gotten started. Wait till you see what's coming, folks.